Hey, you there. Do you have millions of dollars just laying around and want to start a NASCAR team? Well, probably not, but in this video I will give a rough estimate on how much money it costs to run a NASCAR Cup Series team from the ground up. But before that, leave a like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it tremendously. Now, let's start at the base level. In order to be eligible for the TV money that is given to the teams, you have to own what's called a charter. Charters were introduced as a way for the teams to essentially franchise their spots in the field. If you possess a charter, you will be locked into every race. Before 2016, if you had the equipment, the driver, some people, and could fill out the entry form, you could attempt to qualify for a cup race. You can still do this, but it doesn't make financial sense because the 36 charter entries get the lion's share of the revenue. That's why it's rare to see a full field outside of the Daytona 500. So you have to buy a charter from someone else. Originally, the asking price for a charter was in the mid 7-figure range, but since the introduction of the next-gen car, the effects of 2020, and the increase in TV money starting next year, prices for charters have exploded. Just this offseason, Spire Motorsports decided to field Zane Smith in a third car, so they paid BJ McLeod's small team a record $40 million for their charter. Yeah, there's a reason all the new teams recently have major backing behind them from the get-go. The days of a couple guys in an old garage trying to make it in NASCAR is long over. Now that you've put down that $40 million deposit, you have to field a car. For the purposes of this video, let's say you have a one-car team, and let's be conservative and say we have a fleet of 3 complete cars, a primary, a backup, and then another spare. So how much does a fully put together next-gen car actually cost? Well, according to Denny Hamlin on his podcast, I think all in right now this isn't a rough estimate, but I think it's closer to accurate than not. The next-gen car is probably all in with the parts, pieces, all the other stuff you have to purchase to actually make it roll and a driver sit in it. It's probably around $350,000. Okay, so let's take that number and multiply it by 38, with the 36 points races and then the Clash and the All-Star race. We're going to assume you don't have to rebuild all 3 of your cars after every race, just the one that ran. This comes out to a cool $13.3 million for the whole season, just on one entry. But this number assumes that you go an entire full season without any crashes or mechanical failures, which is impossible, so this number will be higher. That's just the physical car itself. You still have to pay salaries to all your employees and pay the travel and lodging costs. The most recent source that I could find, an article in the Florida Times-Union from 2012, says that teams spent $83,500 on their weekly payroll for mechanics, engineers, pit crew, PR person, and the hauler driver. The same source claimed that lodging and travel cost $32,000 per race. NASCAR has mandated teams scale back how many people they bring to the track since then, so it's hard to guess how that number has changed. They're bringing less people, but I'm sure it costs more per person now than it did then, just like everything in this economy. Adding these together comes out to $115,500 per race, which multiplied by 38 gives us a total of $4,389,000. And this number for the workforce doesn't include employees who don't travel to each race, like shop guys, legal, HR, accounting, things like that, so this number is definitely higher. This doesn't even include the driver's salary, which will likely be some base salary, plus a cut of the winnings, and every team will differ on that formula, how they come up with what the driver is paid. So for your first season, you'll have spent at minimum $57,689,000. The only income teams get are from sponsorships, merchandise, and race purse money, which comes down from a slice of the TV money that NASCAR itself gets directly from the networks. In fact, this has been a big point of contention between NASCAR and the teams recently, because the teams want a bigger piece of the pie when the new TV deal starts next year. Under the current split, most of the TV money goes to the tracks and not the teams. Several teams believe that the tracks have become lazy in marketing and don't care about attendance because they're getting a fat check regardless, whereas the teams have to go out and earn their checks. Now you see why it's hard to start a NASCAR team. Granted, once you have the charter, the number goes down considerably year on year, but the charter price continues to rocket upwards on an exponential curve. Sponsors are meant to cover these costs, but with companies realizing they can get better ROI on other marketing campaigns than sponsoring a race car, the industry is forced to try to curtail spending, but I'm not sure how that can actually be accomplished. It's really expensive. So much so, in fact, that even Dale Earnhardt Jr. has had consistent hesitation in spending the money to bring Junior Motorsports to the Cup Series. When asked if the team he and his sister Kelly co-own are trying to get into Cup, he said, "There's zero movement on our end. You know, me and my sister Kelly, LW, and everybody at Junior Motorsports are always looking forward for an opportunity to get into the Cup Series. We're interested in that, but it has to make sense. I think beyond just trying to get into the Cup Series, I think about my own family, my kids, their future, and what I need to do. What's smart for me personally, financially, to make sure that long after I'm gone, everything is in good order. For me personally to take such a large risk financially, I feel like I'm being a bit selfish, so I would be looking, me and Kelly I think would be more interested in a partnership of some kind to get ourselves to that level. And there's opportunities there, but they just haven't felt right. Another key component for me and for Junior Motorsports is that we want to manage the team. We don't want to slap our name on a current product or a current organization and they have their own shop and all that. We don't want to do that. We want to run the team out of our own building and make the decisions on personnel and all those things. So finding all of those, checking all those boxes is hard. All of the opportunities that have come our way haven't checked those boxes. I don't think we're willing to compromise just to be there. That's not a reason to do it. When the most popular driver ever can't field a cup team, then who can? I'm sure it's really just a coincidence that the only teams that have been able to buy charters recently are Trackhouse and 2311. Justin Marks' dad owns a private equity firm, Trackhouse has backing from Chevrolet, and it's widely known that Spire's $40 million charter purchase was on behalf of Trackhouse, considering Zane Smith is a Trackhouse development driver. And 2311 is only co-owned by the one and only Michael Jordan, with backing from Toyota and various brands. You have to be a billionaire to start a NASCAR team these days, not just a multimillionaire. I know, I'm sure some people will start bringing out the world's smallest violin, but when Dale Jr. can't afford to have a race team in the Cup Series, something is afoot. When Furniture Row Racing won the Cup Championship in 2017 and was shut down by the end of 2018 due to no sponsorship, something was afoot. On top of this, charters have no inherent value. The value of them is set by the classic concept of supply and demand. There's only 36 of them, and with teams trying to come in or expand before the new TV deal starts, demand has skyrocketed. It wasn't long ago you could buy a charter for a couple $1,000,000. Now, good luck. I wrap this all up to say it costs a hell of a lot of money. Roughly $60 million for the first year of a car, and then $30 million per car per year after that. If you're a 4-car team, that's $120 million a year. No wonder Jeff Gordon said Hendrick Motorsports hasn't turned a profit in years on Dale Jr.'s podcast. Some of that may be exaggerating, as I'm sure they make a ton in merchandise sales with Elliott and Larson and even retro Gordon stuff, but even for the top teams, it's a fine line to walk. This is why the health of the sport is so important. If people stop watching, sponsors leave, and the series has to figure out how to cope with that. And we all know that the quickest way any business starts cutting spend is by laying people off. This is why it grinds my gears when fans on the internet tell people who complain about the on-track product to not watch. Hello, there's a ton of people, not necessarily drivers, but regular people in the industry who can't afford for that to happen. Although I bet a good portion of people would argue that NASCAR could benefit from some downsizing, but with ratings up so far in 2024, I doubt that will happen anytime soon. The truth of the matter is, cash is king, for better or worse, in all facets of life.